With Money in the Bank just a few short days away now, the hype surrounding the WWE's annual Strap a Rocket to a Future Superstar show couldn't be any lower. Whilst the concept of watching 6 men and women fight their way through an office building to climb a ladder in a ring on a roof sounds like something Vince Russo dreamt up in his wettest of dreams, WWE is changing with the times, and an expected cinematic match may reinvigorate the waning audience. However, it could also detract away from what is and should remain a staple spot in the WWE calendar, a chance to give an overnight push to some of its superstars. The briefcase should be held in the esteem it deserves alongside the Royal Rumble and the Andre the okay, maybe not that one. However, not every Money in the Bank winner has been heralded, and we at Better Call Creative love nothing better than to throw shade on wrestling's worst. So here we are to rank them. The top 10 worst Money in the Bank winners. Number 10, Brock Lesnar. Heading into last year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view, for once a firm favourite from the men's match was not blindingly obvious, many thinking that this may be the time to crown the heir apparent Drew McIntyre. There were other viable options such as Ricochet or the rising star Ali. Surprises in wrestling are always welcome, and the winner here would not be on the betting slips for many WWE fans, with Sami Zayn being taken out the match after an attack by Baron Corbin. As the match reached its culmination, out came the Beast, Brock Lesnar, to steal the win and the briefcase. Now, placing Brock on a list of the worst winners in Money in the Bank seems like we're against this booking. However, it must be said that if WWE were not ready to pull the trigger on these 8 superstars, maybe a shock winner helps create buzz for the event. Yet it has to be said, whilst WWE would finally give Drew McIntyre the big win, and with Randy Orton already being established, many of these competitors in this match have not progressed in the years since, and whilst of course that's not the fault of Brock Lesnar, his winning took a spot and a moment away from maybe a more deserving superstar. But it did give birth to the Boombox Brock, and no one can ever complain about that. Cashing in his contract following a mixed tag match at Extreme Rules on Seth Rollins, Brock would go on to reclaim the Universal Championship in one of the more forgettable cash-ins in Money in the Bank history. Number 9. Alberto Del Rio. 3 syllables can sum up why Alberto Del Rio's Money in the Bank win appears on this list. CM Punk. Appearing in the Raw Money in the Bank ladder match in 2011, Alberto Del Rio rather predictably would claim the briefcase in a match not filled with the highest profile of stars. The Raw ladder match already being overshadowed by the good time win for Daniel Bryan in the SmackDown version would only further end up being pushed aside with what was one of the greatest main events in the history of the company between CM Punk and John Cena. Suddenly the hottest babyface in the company was holding the title, and Alberto Del Rio's briefcase was an afterthought and an unwelcome guest. WWE had decided to go with Punk versus Triple H in the storyline throughout the summer, and Alberto, having a claim to the title, was no longer in interest. He would successfully cash in the title just 1 month later thanks to a jackknife from Kevin Nash, but Alberto was the most irrelevant man in this picture and dropped the title to John Cena 1 month later in a match that was the cool-down spot for Triple H versus CM Punk. Whilst there is no doubt Alberto had to win this briefcase, the timing could not be any worse. Number 8. Dolph Ziggler. In 2012, there were few non-main event talent hotter than Dolph Ziggler. After years of mid-card toil, the WWE Universe was craving a world title run for the show-off, and heading into the Money in the Bank event, Dolph was a firm favourite. In a match that had an array of talent from Sin Cara to Tensai, Dolph would work his butt off in the match, and when he finally pulled down the briefcase, fans were ready for Dolph and wanted nothing more than to get behind his world title hunt. This fact was even more evident when during the world title match at WrestleMania the following year, the fans chanted his name in a match he wasn't in, and only 24 hours later he would cash in and be crowned the new world champion. If the story ended there, then there would be no 8th spot for Dolph Ziggler, but his title run was horrible, jobbing out straight away to Jack Swagger and even bumping around for Ricardo Rodriguez, And if you want a full breakdown of that, check out our Dolph Ziggler's title run in the archives episode. The hope began to fade, and whilst WWE had done its best to end this run, ultimately injury would put the final nail in the Dolph Ziggler title reign, and the joy of a few months back quickly evaporated. Number 7, Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger's briefcase win felt like the first cooling down of the Money in the Bank concept. The gimmick may be being overplayed in recent years. Going into WrestleMania 26, the roster of talent in the Money in the Bank were the almost men in WWE, all with a strong claim for the next title push. It was Jackie Swagger who would ultimately claim the briefcase, and the future looked bright for the 6-foot bruiser. Sitting on his case for all of 2 days, Swagger would cash in the briefcase on SmackDown the week following Mania, taking the opportunity presented by Edge, who had speared the world champion Chris Jericho, which is a somewhat forgotten quirk of their new alliance in the Bubbly Bunch. His 79-day reign as world champion, however, felt like a demotion of the title's importance, with very poor booking of Swagger, not making him look like the dominant champion his style and look deserved. Fatal 4-way loss to Rey Mysterio, and Jack Swagger was relegated back to the mid-card as quickly as he'd been out of it. As with many on this list, we're left to question what might have been with the correct creative behind him. Number 6, Mr. Kennedy. So good, he must be announced twice. Mr. Kennedy was the third winner of the briefcase, capturing it at WrestleMania 23 in a match littered with top-tier talent and future Hall of Famers. Mr. Kennedy seemed ready to receive the push that his work in the last 2 years in WWE had deserved. A very entertaining, highly skilled performer, Mr. Kennedy would receive a whole heap of bad luck. Bad luck that makes him 6th on our list and the first superstar not to successfully cash in the briefcase or even compete in a contracted match for the title. He would lose that right after being defeated in a match by Edge, and depending on who you believe, he was either being punished for poor backstage attitude or had sustained an injury either before or during this match. Mr. Kennedy would have a few more opportunities to grab that brass ring, but ultimately his face did not fit in Titan Towers, and Mr. Kennedy's Money in the Bank win is now seemingly consigned to those who shall not be talked about. Number 5, Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman has been decorated with many of the WWE's non-title accolades: a winner of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, the Greatest Royal Rumble title, and 2018's Money in the Bank winner. It's good to finally see Braun positioned in a spot that WWE should have placed him in a year or two ago. After besting some of the best workers in the company in Money in the Bank 2018, there seemed no doubt that Braun would finally get hold of the world title. However, his flipping between heel and face became distracting and confusing to an audience that had spent the year before cheering him over the hand-picked Roman Reigns in their feud. So forgettable was his cash-in that I had created my own Mandela effect, where I believed he cashed in the briefcase at Crown Jewel. But if that doesn't prove how forgettable your time with the briefcase was, nothing else will. Number 4, Carmella. 4th on the list, but first in history, Carmella would win, in air quotes, the first ever women's Money in the Bank match, and actually the second. Her first win in controversial fashion with the aid of her manager James Ellsworth. Carmella was awarded the win without retrieving the briefcase, an overbooked finish that did nothing to establish Carmella as a threat to the established elite of the women's roster. The second Money in the Bank match was hastily organised for SmackDown 2 weeks later, and this time Carmella would be crowned a legitimate holder of the briefcase. Her subsequent cash-in of the Money in the Bank was a big boost to her position on the roster, but storyline again would be her undoing, never really progressing past transitional holder of the belt. Successfully defending her belt in a terrible match at Backlash 2018, and if you want a review on that, check out our archive podcast on that event. She would eventually lose the title without being pinned at SummerSlam in a triple threat match against Becky Lynch and eventual winner Charlotte Flair. Her only reign at the time of recording, Carmella's spot in history will remain, but her impact as Money in the Bank winner is not as favourable. Number 3, John Cena. Ask my podcast partner and brother Sam and he'll tell you John Cena is the worst Money in the Bank winner of all time. And storyline aside, his win in the main event at Money in the Bank 2012 may very well be the reason why he ranks so highly. Positioned as the main event of the show, where Daniel Bryan fought CM Punk in an absolute classic, and with as much predictability as Donald Trump saying something stupid, John Cena going over in the main event felt another way to place him above CM Punk in the babyface pecking order. It would thus be the catalyst to a heel turn so desperately needed for the straight edge warrior. John Cena would cash in his contract in the honourable John Cena way, giving CM Punk notice of his intentions to challenge him at Raw 1000. It's puzzling looking back as to how CM Punk can now be considered the heel here, as John Cena's goody-goody ways deserved a knee to the face, and coupled with the hotly anticipated Rock Cena 2 main event we were obviously going to get, Rocky can expect a big forearm to the face too. Predictability and CM Punk are the two reasons that John Cena is third on our list. Oh, and that goofy face. I mean, that's three reasons. Number 2, Baron Corbin. A former Andre the Giant Battle Royal winner. Also, Baron Corbin is the most natural heel that the WWE has on its current roster. He has a heel face. He looks like he would literally kick your grandma in the face to get ahead of her in the queue for Tesco's, but fans hate him. Some think it's go away heat, however I would say that heat is desperately lacking in WWE, and it's proven by the fellow superstars in the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2017. AJ Styles, Dolph Ziggler, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura, all names that the WWE universe can't really bring itself to committing to hating, so it's fitting that Baron Corbin would be the eventual winner. Send them home miserable is what I say. And so how disappointed I was that only 2 months later his contract had been cashed in and he was strapless. During a match between the then champion Jinder Mahal, yes, Jinder Mahal, and John Cena, Baron Corbin would cash in only to lose the match after being pinned by Mahal after a distraction from John Cena. Whilst some may say he managed to repair the damage with wins over Kurt Angle at WrestleMania and main events feuds with Roman Reigns, the loss did as much to damage him in the short term as it did to damage the Money in the Bank concept and pay-per-view, something we hope the 2020 version will help repair. And number 1, Damien Sandow. Over as an obnoxious heel, Damien Sandow had slowly creeped into contention to win the briefcase as we headed into the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2013. Teaming as part of the Rhodes Scholars, it was easy to see why an alliance during the match may result in either a win for Damien Sandow or Cody Rhodes. And in a moment of rebooking that may have caused a butterfly effect on the budding AEW promotion, Cody's push from the ladder rather than taking the briefcase would have a detrimental effect on both men's future careers within the WWE. The crowd wanted Cody to win, so it's easy to see how much heat had been placed on Sandow as he turned on his then partner and snatched the briefcase down. However, being put into a second match on the card feud with Rhodes with little TV time or enhancement meant that Damien Sandow holding the briefcase did little to concern the world champions of the time. A few teased cash-ins were met with mild interest, and so when he eventually did cash in on an injured John Cena, it was not surprising that the WWE brass booked it so Johnny Boy would successfully thwart Sandow. Damien Sandow would quickly plummet, and his run as Money in the Bank briefcase holder is widely accepted as our worst ever. We hope you enjoyed our list. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe and press the notification button for future podcasts now playing to the side, and other top 10s coming shortly. As always, I'm representing my isolated good brothers. I have been Ben Chance, a Better Call Creative, saying stay safe, folks.